And Superintendent Segura, can you please introduce our budget update?
Absolutely. I'd like to welcome Ms. Katrina Montgomery, Interim Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Jacob Reach, Chief of Board Services and Government Relations, to take us through the budget presentation.
Hello, President Boswell and Superintendent Segura. Tonight we're going to start going over our budget updates. We have our board guardrails. We met in August of 2024, and the board gave us very specific guidelines of how they wanted us to proceed with our reductions and cost strategies. So, one, to ensure cuts in any area are equity driven. 2, consider the long-term impacts of these cuts and reductions. 3, ensure that the teacher's voice has been heard in the decisions. 4, center literacy aligned to our student outcomes. And finally, listen to the people impacted before cuts are final. So the Cascade implementation timeline, this is the timeline that talks about the $92 million deficit. We have 3 years, and we did this very strategically because we wanted to make sure that we were able to get 2 legislative sessions here. So we're currently in the 89th Texas legislation, and in 24-25, we'd said we would cut or reduce our deficit by $26 million. And the check mark means we've accomplished that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. For FY 25-26, it's $47 million worth of reductions. And then 26-27, we would have the 90th Texas legislation with reductions of $19 million. When you see the bold black line, everything to the left, those are developed strategies that we're going to talk about in detail that we've already kind of worked through. They're on our list, which we're working through next steps. And then you have pending strategies, which is more of the FY 25-26 reductions, as well as the 26-27 reductions. This slide simply shows that what we've presented last time for FY 24-25, the $26 million goal that we just talked about on the previous slide, the strategies have been achieved. So I want to be very clear, the strategies have been achieved, and we're consistently working through what this means and making sure we're tweaking all of these strategies to goal. Finance, it's $5 million, and that's mostly going to come from interest earned. We're meeting with our bankers to talk about ways to come up with strategies to increase our interest. Like, what do we need to do? We have so much money. Our tax collections are coming in. What do we need to do to make sure that we're maximizing the interest earned? So those meetings will be held next week. Operations and facilities, Chief Steamport's department has contributed $8.98 million. You see a star to the right because that means she has continued to work. She's made improvements and done additional reductions since we presented this in December of 2024. And that's what we want. We don't want this to be, oh, you know what? We made the strategy, we made our goal, let's stop. We want to continuously try to find ways to reduce the deficit. Talent strategy, Chief Hosak has talked about our benefits program. Our benefits program has a really good reserve, and so we've talked about not funding the benefits program for 2 months, so that's the $9 million. Teaching, learning, and leading, it's $3 million. We're meeting consistently with the TLL team to figure out ways that we can make reductions. And technology has reductions of $3.4 million. Chief Rodriguez is moving positions from general operating to bond, as well as looking at contracts. And then district-wide, it's $5 million. And that $5 million is ESSER supplanting. We talked about this a little bit in detail before. There was additional ESSER dollars that we are using to offset utility costs. So when you look at FY, the $26 million strategies are achieved, and as of this, the end of last week, we were at $34.48 million. So we've talked about the strategies, what we've done to make sure that we reduce our deficit, but we want to have a clear, holistic approach when we discuss the FY 24-25 budget. So these are essential additional requests. So additional requests are requests that come in from different departments, different divisions, and these requests come in and they go to our superintendent. And what we want to say when Superintendent Segura and I talked today is all of these requests are valid, right? They're work that we're doing for our kids, for our students. So we're additionally getting requests. I think I've received 2 requests today. So special education, we've given them an additional $10 million as of last semester. They've requested an additional $12 million to get them through the spring. Instructional materials was $7.2 million. And these are all things that we've increased the budget after the budget was passed by you in June of 2024. Technology operational software, when we did the budget, Frontline hadn't been included, and so that's the cost of Frontline. Service center repairs and maintenance, that's $5.7 million. So we've increased their budget. With the service center, we've known year over year that we've given them a budget that will not sustain them. So we're talking about how to make sure this is also an opportunity for us to make sure that our budget is all inclusive of all of the expenses. We need to make sure that everything that we know that we're going to spend is in the budget. In the prior years, we've had the benefit of property value growth, and so if you added additional requests, it was okay because property value growth was increasing. So we need to make sure that we're very clear on our budget. Everything that it takes to run the district needs to be included in the budget, and that we pass a balanced budget.
So, hang on, this is an important slide. I think it needs to be clearly communicated to the board that these are not necessarily new expenses. They're expenses that we have not historically communicated line item by line item in our budget in the way that we need to moving forward. An example of that, special education evaluation contracts. That is not new this year. It was there last year. Service repair and maintenance. There were years ago, the total annual cost was $12 to $15 million, and we just never budgeted that. And so what we, as an organization, would do is just allow for property values to continue to grow, and then it would often offset any kind of misalignments in the budget. And so we need to not do that. What we need to do is to make sure that we are budgeting to actuals. So it's really, really important that we clearly communicate and identify all things that we spend money on, period. And I also want to point out that some of these are forward-facing and some of these are current year. That's not necessarily explicit in this document, but there is a difference between the two. You continue on.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So now we're going to look at FY 25-26 budget updates. The $47 million that you saw on the Cascade design, this is how we separated between priority focus and subsequent focus. We're saying that we have an estimated of $20 million worth of strategies. That's the hybrid work schedule, and we'll talk about these a little bit more. Transportation reconfigured, master schedule efficiency, PEAMS, portable reductions, contract evaluations, and graduation preparatory academy. And then there's additional $27 million worth of strategies we don't have that we're still researching and trying to find. And some of those ideas that we can cover that is through property monetization efforts, supplemental program growth, evaluate stipends, which Chief Hozak and I are doing. And then finally, we want to say direct impact to campuses. We want to be very clear that we've said this from the beginning, that we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to not have an impact to campus. But if we get to the point where these savings and all of these things that we're working on, we might have to look at impacts to campuses. So when we look at the budget initiative here, master schedule efficiency improvement, this is led by Chief Rodriguez, our Chief of Technology. There's updates that we've already had our first scheduled steering committee meeting. They've convened. There's master schedule working group convened. And then there are next steps. How do we move this work forward? We met with Chief Rodriguez this week, and one of the things we know is master schedule is not going to fix it all. It's not a one and done, so this is going to be something that we work with over multiple years. But how do we try to figure out what savings we can have for FY 25-26? And then PEAMS reform, there's some updates. The PEAMS submission was due today. It had been extended previously, so it was due today, January 30th. There's a Gibson Consulting concurrent PEAMS audit that will be done in spring of 2025. and then there are next steps. So some of the improvements that we've already had with PEEMS is our ECODIS numbers. When we started to analyze them, the number was at 39%. We've since increased that to 52%. Our average daily attendance, we talked about that a little bit ago. We wanted at least 1% growth. We're at 1.41%. And so campuses will be receiving the additional funding that we've talked about. So the reforming the PEEMS process is definitely helping us figure out ways that we can keep more of our revenue here at the district. Reconfiguration of transportation routes. This is led by Chief Steamport. Her team has completed research on district's best practices and route modeling. We're looking at ridership. She's looking at everything to see how can we make sure that we constantly maximize what we have to provide the services for our student, but to make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible. Her next steps are to refine route modeling, and that will be done in April of 2025. Contract evaluations, this has been led by me. The procurement team has created a vendor performance form, and what this performance form does is it helps us analyze how a vendor is doing. What are their outcomes? What are they giving us? Is it matching back to what we expected? Sometimes we see contracts just roll over year. Oh, we had this vendor, or we had this contract last year, let's just keep it again. And so all contracts in teaching, learning, and leading and technology will be reviewed. It'll be a partnership between the department and the procurement team to start analyzing and to making sure these are things that we really need and we're receiving outcomes from these contracts. This will be implemented when we do the budget for FY 25-26. Portable reductions, this is being led by Chief Steamport is leading the portable reductions, and so we have some updates. She's met with school leadership, and one of the first things we talked about is getting a list of all the portables. And TLL and Chief Steamport have worked together where there might be an extra portable one location and another school needs a portable. How do we move those portables? We have in the past just gone out and released a portable. So we're constantly talking about strategies and ways that we can reduce cost. Hybrid work schedule, this is also led by Chief Steamport. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are completed. The hybrid work schedule began in January 6th, so as soon as we came back from break, and Chief Steamport has done a really good job. It has been a really smooth transition. She has floor plans and diagrams. And then Phase 3 is her next step, and it's projected move-in date for the vendor of March 28th. So for FY 25-26 updates, leadership has met to confirm timelines and verify milestones. Leadership has shared timelines and milestones with the board, and we will continue to do that. There have been scheduling and some have been held, initial steering committee meetings. And then I want to talk about for FY 25-26, the recurring meetings with Travis County Appraisal District. So one of the things we talked about at the beginning of this year is that we passed a deficit budget of $78 million, and it increased to $92 million because there was a swing of $14 million. TCAT had told us that our property value growth would be at 6%, and then they ended up coming in at 1%. And so that was a $14 million swing.
So Katrina, I think, I don't want to stop you, but I think it's really important everybody understand when we get that information. So in the last budgeting process, we received that information around April of 2024, when we're in the middle of the budgeting process. The budget is adopted in June of 2024, and then we get final numbers August 1 or July 30th.
Late July, August.
And so so the 6% swing, which had a huge impact, occurred after the budget had already been approved, and the best information we had prior to that was 6% growth ended being 0. So I just want to kind of put everybody kind of in that moment, because we're about to go through that again right now. Right? Okay, so sorry.
Right, no, please. So we meet regularly now with the chief tax appraiser. Her name is Leanna, and she meets with us every month, and we talk to her about what are her projections. We know that her projections are going to change. When we met with her in late November, early December, she thought that the values would be maybe a 1% growth to 0% growth, and now she's saying a decrease between 9 and 13%. And I want to be really clear really clear that these are her projections, but we have to start planning our budget on these projections, right? So the numbers can change, but these are her projections as of, I believe, maybe a week or two ago.
And Katrina, for extreme clarity, when it was communicated, was it 9 to 13 was kind of the worst scenario?
It was the worst case
Correct.
scenario.
So I just want to make sure that it's a range, but the worst side of that is 9 to 13% property value reduction or decrease.
Decrease.
Which means the high end is not likely to be positive, right? The range is not going to be greater than 10% most likely. So-
Right, right. And then the final, we're continuously reviewing subsequent focus items. So before we start talking about engagement, I'm glad Superintendent Segura has like paused and made sure we're very clear. We are moving the work forward. We have FY 24-25 where we're trying to make sure we're doing reductions as well as monitoring the budget and making sure that we don't continuously just blow our deficit. But we're also working with FY 25-26 where we're trying to come up with reduction strategies as well as pass a balanced budget. So it's a lot. And one of the things I hear people saying is that it kind of seems like the goalpost is moving. Well, it's a budget, and so these things are going to continuously move, but we are going to make sure that we're transparent and we're coming here and explaining to the board the latest information that we have with the understanding that these numbers every single day are changing. Like we never would have thought when we talked to Leanna that was what she was gonna say. I mean, there were points where Austin had 16% property value growth, and so now we're looking at a decrease in those numbers. So all of these things truly impact how we will proceed with processing and putting forth the balanced budget for FY 25-26.
And I think it's also important to talk about just the challenge of going back over and over again, division to division, exploring opportunities for reduction in cost. And I often get asked, well, Matthias, should we wait a little bit because the ledge may do something? And I know we're about to talk about legislative priorities and some of the things that are occurring right now on the ledge. But in 2023, really, we made an investment, and we thought that the ledge, 2024, in
23-24.
but the ledge was going through the process in 23, through the summer of 2020, summer of 2023, and so we made decisions thinking the ledge would do something at that time, and nothing occurred, and so we're hyper sensitive to assuming that something will happen. Just to be, and remember then Trustee Boswell making comments around, what's the probability of anything happening? At that point, we felt hopeful. I don't know that we have the luxury or ability to be as hopeful again, no matter what is being said around us. And again, that's a conversation for the board, but just want to make sure that's cleared. That it can be frustrating, but that's because we're trying to hold that line as best we can.
Yes, I do agree. I think my peers are being as patient as possible, but as long, it is a continuous, go back, okay, can we look at this? Okay, let me see your budget. Let's dive through your whole budget. These are, there has to be, every single thing has to be looked at, right? Like, so, and I do understand for them, as respectfully as possible, it kind of gets a little hard because, Katrina, you've given me a goal, I met your goal, and now you're coming back asking for more, and now you're coming back asking me to see my budget. I understand that, but we have to continuously move the work forward. With the increases that we just saw, we cannot let those roll to our deficit. They can't just be a part of an addition. So the way we need to look at it is if we're giving more, then we need to cut more, we need to reduce more. I want to talk, I might kind of tag Chief Hosak, but what Superintendent Segura just talked about, that year that we gave rate increases for $65 million, right? And so that is some of the things that continues. We thought that we were going to get additional funds, right? Okay.
Good evening, Board. Yes, that is correct. So when we negotiated that compensation agreement that year, we had good faith that, in a surplus year for the budget for the state, that certainly teachers will be held in high regard in that. And so we took a large gamble on our compensation because we needed to that year. We needed to really push forward, especially coming off of the pandemic and trying to bounce back. Unfortunately, the legislature did not push forward a bill that was helpful to us in that capacity. So we had to dip into our own money to be able to cover that.
And I think it's also important to note that that investment was an important investment, and we also saw a response, right, based on that investment. You know, vacancy rates, you know, we saw them move in the right direction, attrition rates move in the right direction. Just a lot of things were impacted by that investment. And I think, generally speaking, from a overall support of our staff, it was a good thing, but it was something that, you know, was a challenge for us, and we're seeing that now.
Yes. Thank you, Brandy. So completed engagements, one of the things we heard from, thank you, Chief Hosak. One of the things we've heard over and over from our board is we want to make sure we're having a lot of engagement with our community as well as our staff. So you can see, I believe this is 6 events that we've had over the month of December. So we were really getting out, talking to the community. We had a budget ad hoc committee meeting, and you will see something that Allie and I talk a lot about. On Saturday, we've talked about it. We've never thought that on Saturday at 11 o'clock in the day, you would have people that would want to talk about the budget. And I believe we've had 100, 150 people attend a Zoom session on a Saturday. And Allie and I are sometimes still on there at 1 o'clock. It is utterly amazing. And I know for me, it was mind-boggling. I thought Saturday, no one's going to want to do this. So we're going to keep doing that because we realize that is one of the ways that we can reach our community. There are future engagement opportunities. The January 21st meeting was rescheduled because of the weather day, but February 5th, we're meeting with principals. This is something Chief Drinks has talked about, is us getting in the front of the principals and bringing them along about where we are. So we're going to have meetings with the principals on February 5th. February 5th, we also have a budget ad hoc meeting. And then February 18th, we're going to talk with aspiring principals. And then we have our Saturday meeting on February 22nd. And then February 27th, the board has a work session of which we'll dig way more into FY 24-25, where are we, where are we projected to go, and FY 25-26, what strategies do we have, what do we think we're going to reduce, and what do we think we need to start doing next. And then in March, Dr. Holly has asked that we present to the Equity Action Committee. And then March 8th, Allie and her team have been creating this event at Mendez Middle School called the Community Connect, and they have all of these wonderful ideas about how to have a station for children, and we'll talk to the children about how to do a budget, and then there'll be a place where Superintendent Segura speaks, and there'll be a place where I speak. We want to get the community engaged in understanding finances, but also the finances of the district. Wednesday, April 2nd, we have an ad hoc meeting. April 12th, April 22nd, and May 3rd, we're going to start continuously meeting with our staff to talk to them about what are next steps with the budget. We did want to have at least one meeting in person, so the April 22nd meeting will be at Austin High School. That's the place where we've had the largest in-person turnout. So that's how we selected Austin High. And then June 4th, there'll be a budget ad hoc meeting. So we've done a survey at each one of these meetings. We've done a survey, and so there have been so far 109 participants, and of that we've received 163 responses. Some of the top responses are keep blend, advocacy at the state legislation, utility controls, transportation partnership, 4-day instruction work week, consolidated under-enrolled school campuses, eliminate travel and cell phone stipends. Chief Hosak and I are working on a plan for that. Keep 6 of 8. Evaluate teacher-student ratios, and increase multipurpose usage at facilities, so using Facilitron. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jacob Reach, and then I'll be here available to answer